In the mist-covered kingdom of Eldros, King Alaric IV ruled a palace where silence reigned. For over 150 years, no monarch had spoken aloud. It began with Queen Lysandra, who, legend said, was cursed for mocking a mute servant. Since then, every heir to the throne was born healthy, but without a voice. Eldros' court adapted. Every royal decree was written. Music replaced conversation. Poets were more powerful than generals. Alaric was the latest monarch to carry this haunting legacy. His eyes burned with thought, his hands spoke volumes, and his silence was law. But the people whispered of change. They saw signs. On the night of his coronation, lightning struck the whispering tree, the oldest living symbol of the royal line. Its fall was taken as an omen. The curse must end or the kingdom would. In a secluded village beyond Eldros' borders, a peasant girl named Thalia was born with a voice so melodic that animals stopped to listen. She was raised by her grandmother, a midwife who had once served in the royal palace before being exiled for whispering forbidden truths about the curse. Thalia's voice was no ordinary gift. It echoed across valleys and lingered in dreams. Rumors of her singing reached the palace through traveling traders. When King Alaric heard of her, he did not speak. He sent his silent knights under moonlight to bring her in chains or glory. But Thalia had already left. Guided by dreams of silver crowns and a burning tree, she journeyed to the capital. Villagers blessed her, fearing both her power and what she might awaken. When Thalia arrived at the palace gates, she did something no one had dared in generations. She sang the royal name aloud, Alaric. The stones themselves seemed to tremble. Inside, the king stood frozen. A voice had pierced the silence of the bloodline, and the curse stirred. As Thalia's voice echoed through the marble palace, an unseen force rippled through the royal bloodline. King Alaric, pale and still, took a single step forward. His hand trembled, something that had never happened in public. Every court member gasped, though none spoke. Thalia was brought before him, not as a prisoner but as a mystery. She did not kneel. Instead, she met his eyes and said softly, "Your silence is not your fault, it's hers." The court scribes nearly dropped their quills. The unspoken name hung in the air, Queen Lysandra. It had been forbidden for generations. Alaric gestured sharply. The hall emptied. In the candlelit throne room, king and common girl stood alone. Thalia reached for him, not out of fear, but recognition. "You dream of fire," she said. "So do I." Then, something unthinkable. A whisper from Alaric's lips. No words, just a sound, a breath with intent. His first attempt to speak. The silence was beginning to break. Outside, storms gathered again. Ravens circled the castle spires. And deep below the palace, in the sealed crypt of Queen Lysandra, the stones groaned. Beneath the palace, hidden behind layers of chained doors and rusted seals, lay the crypt of Queen Lysandra, the cursed monarch who had mocked the voiceless and doomed her line. For centuries, no king or queen had dared disturb her tomb. But now, with Thalia's voice cracking the silence, the seal had fractured. King Alaric ordered the crypt opened, a royal command issued with a silent nod and trembling hand. Thalia descended the steps with him, guided by dreams and something older than memory. Inside the chamber, walls were carved with scenes of Lysandra's reign, her cruelty immortalized in stone. There she sat in eternal mockery, her mummified remains upon a throne of obsidian, lips parted in a smug smile. But her eyes, glass or otherwise, seemed aware. Thalia approached and began to sing. Not a song of praise, but a lullaby her grandmother taught her, one forbidden in the capital. The walls began to weep. The queen's mouth crumbled. Then her voice returned, not Lysandra's, but the wail of every silenced royal soul. The chamber shook. Alaric fell to his knees. "Your curse is not eternal," Thalia whispered. "Only inherited." The moment she finished speaking, the crypt grew still. A silver tear ran down Alaric's cheek. Above ground, the whispering tree stump began to sprout again. Back in Thalia's village, the exiled grandmother sat by a dying fire, sensing the crypt had been opened. She retrieved a hidden scroll, sealed with wax older than her own memory. Inside was a lineage chart, one the kingdom had buried. Queen Lysandra had a daughter the world never knew. That daughter was spared the curse by being secretly raised outside the palace walls, sent away by a remorseful servant on the night of Lysandra's death. That daughter's blood ran through Thalia. Thalia was not just a peasant girl with a gift. She was royal. The scroll, once protected by generations of silent women, held ancient rights that could sever the curse for good. But it came at a cost. Only the blood of the cursed could break the curse. One would have to speak, then die. Back in the palace, Alaric sat with Thalia in the garden. He had begun to form syllables, broken, breathy fragments. He touched her hand and mouthed, "You." Thalia nodded. "I know who I am now." As night fell, the court watched in stunned awe as Thalia was crowned with the diadem of the lost princess. The palace bells rang for the first time in 150 years. But the joy was short-lived, for the ancient right had been found, and it would demand one royal voice be sacrificed for all the rest. In the ancient library beneath the Temple of Whispers, Thalia and Alaric unearthed the forgotten ritual, the Rite of the Silver Tongue. Written in a dead language, it described the curse's origin. Queen Lysandra had stolen the voice of a mute servant to ensure her own child would rule forever. The spell backfired. Her child was exiled. Her bloodline was cursed with silence, until the silenced voice returned in a new heir. That heir was Thalia. To break the curse, one of royal blood must sing the song of undoing in full voice. But once sung, that soul would be lost, burned out like a flame giving light to others. Alaric, moved by duty, tried to offer himself. He had just begun to form sounds, his voice weak, fragile. But Thalia's was strong, pure. Her destiny. They argued not in words, but in glances, gestures, scribbled notes. In the end, Thalia simply smiled and pressed a hand to his lips. This voice was never mine alone. At dawn, the great court gathered. Thalia stepped forward and sang. The song of undoing was haunting, part lullaby, part scream, part storm. The air shimmered. Paintings whispered. The whispering tree blossomed fully again. And then silence. She collapsed in Alaric's arms, her voice gone forever. But the curse was broken. With the curse lifted, Eldros faced a new dawn. But it was not as simple as voices returning. The palace, long accustomed to silence, struggled to find balance. The old ways had been etched into every stone, every ceremony. King Alaric and Thalia now ruled as partners, her voice restored, his silence a symbol of sacrifice and strength. Thalia's first official decree was not spoken aloud but written. Let every citizen have a voice. Voices once hushed or ignored began to rise. Poets, musicians, and common folk filled the streets with sound. Eldros blossomed with new energy, but whispers of fear lingered. Would the curse return? Had the price truly been paid? Or was there a darker secret beneath the quiet crown? As the royal couple walked the palace gardens, they heard a child laugh for the first time in decades. It was a fragile sound, yet full of hope. The kingdom breathed again, but silence still waited, watching. Just as peace seemed certain, shadows crept back into Eldros. A faction of nobles, the Silent Order, believed the curse had blessed the royal family with divine power. They whispered that breaking it would bring ruin, not freedom. Secret meetings in darkened chambers plotted to restore the old silence, by force if needed. Their leader, Lord Varen, was a tall man with piercing eyes and a scar across his lip, known for his ruthless ambition. When Thalia's voice rang out at public ceremonies, the Silent Order spread fear. The crown's true power lies in silence. They sought to silence Thalia permanently and return the throne to its voiceless legacy. Alaric, powerless to speak but fiercely protective, stood beside Thalia. The kingdom teetered between light and dark, speech and silence. One stormy night, the Silent Order struck, kidnapping Thalia to the ancient crypt. Their plan: to force her to sing the song of undoing again, this time to extinguish all voices forever. The battle for Eldros' future was about to begin. Under the moon's cold light, Eldros Palace became a battlefield of sound and silence. The Silent Order's knights clashed with the king's loyal guards, steel ringing and voices raised in desperate defiance. Thalia, bound but unbroken, refused to sing the song of undoing again. Instead, she called upon the people of Eldros, her voice a beacon cutting through darkness. From the palace windows and streets, citizens joined her in song, drowning out the conspirators' silence. Alaric, though unable to speak, commanded with fierce eyes and graceful swordplay, protecting Thalia with every breath. As dawn broke, the Silent Order was broken. Their leader, Lord Varen, fell in defeat, his scarred face twisted with rage and disbelief. The kingdom had chosen voice over silence. But the price had been high. Alaric's health waned, and Thalia knew the future would demand even greater sacrifice. Weeks after the battle, King Alaric grew weaker. The strain of the curse, broken too late, had left his voice forever stilled, and his body fading. Thalia remained at his side, her song now the anthem of a kingdom reborn, but her heart heavy with sorrow. In the palace garden, beneath the newly blossomed whispering tree, Alaric handed Thalia a final scroll. His words written in delicate ink. "You are the voice of Eldros, and mine." He passed away without a sound, surrounded by flowers, music, and peace. Thalia mourned deeply, but her grief gave rise to strength. She was crowned queen in a ceremony where every citizen sang. No trumpets, no fanfare, just voices, echoing across the hills. Under her rule, Eldros became a land where every child learned to sing, every elder's story was honored, and silence became a choice, not a sentence. And in the royal garden, the whispering tree stood tall, its leaves rustling with the voices of the past, and its roots fed by sacrifice, love, and the final breath of a king who never spoke, but was always heard.